final minute. Bennett for the pocket. Lost it to the end. Caught. Touchdown. A.D. Mitchell.
Chase McGrath for the win for the Volunteers. From 40. On the way, knuckleball. He got it.
Welcome in, everybody. How are we doing on this fine Thursday evening? As I didn't really have many games to really talk about on Thursday, Friday. One game locked up for Friday, though, when it comes to Walk That Line, which we will have at the end of the show. But first, I ask that you guys go over to TikTok. Bash the CFB show is where you can find me. Twitter /X. Find me at bash_CFB. I'm trying to post more a little bit on there, but we will be getting, as I'm watching these football games tonight, West Virginia, Houston going to halftime, and the Chiefs, Broncos Thursday night football game, and then also SMU starting out hot against East Carolina. As I'm watching these, I'll be making TikToks previewing the weekend's action. So hopefully we're a lot more ahead of the curve. It will be a whole lot easier to record and make videos on this weekend's action. So check out what I have there on TikTok, Twitter, and then if you want to catch me live streaming these videos, just go over to Twitch. Because remember, opinion plus discussion equals community. And if you follow me, I promise I'm trying to build a community. And the only way we're going to be able to do that is if you share your opinion with me while I share my opinion, and we have a discussion about our opinions. That's how we can build a community. So comment, like, and subscribe. Would really appreciate it. Certainly, if you guys would subscribe. I also want to give a shout out and thank you to all subscribers here. We surpassed the first threshold, which is triple digits, 100. Hopefully we can grow, but every single one of you is appreciated, and your support is very much loved and appreciated. God bless to all of you guys. And if you don't believe in that, that's okay. I mean, well for you guys, but I'm going to share what I believe. So God bless to all of you guys, and thank you. All right, without further ado, let's get straight into the previews. We're going to start with talking about the Ohio State Buckeyes going on the road to Purdue. Now, this is interesting because a lot of people may highlight what happened the last time Ohio State went to West Lafayette. 49-20, Rondale Moore had himself a day, but also DJ Knox had himself a day. A big-time game for David Blau and that offense for Purdue. But this is not the same Ohio State defense. They haven't been struggling with explosive plays. They are tops in America when it comes to allowing explosive plays. This is also a Purdue team that isn't getting those explosive plays. Hudson Card is a pretty solid quarterback, to be honest with you, in what they have, but they have not been able to really run the ball with Devin Mockabee being the lead tailback, and they really don't have much of a pass game to speak of. Now, on the flip side, does Ohio State have a pass game? Kind of. Kyle McCord looked shaky yet again. I am not thinking he is good at all as a player. I'm out on him. I've given him so many chances. I thought he would be able to level up after the bye week and after the Notre Dame game with some confidence. And he's just okay. He is what he is. As long as he doesn't throw it to the other team, Ohio State has a chance. So there is no upset here unless Kyle McCord has a disastrous football game. And I don't even think that the line is so the line between or the margin between Devin Brown and Kyle McCord is so wide to the point where if Kyle McCord has one of those disastrous games where they could lose to Purdue, I wouldn't think that they would get to that point of losing this game before Devin Brown is put in. So the number one question I'm going to have is Travion Henderson is expected to be back for this game. How is the run game? Purdue is not a great run defense. Neither was Maryland. Neither really was Notre Dame. How is Ohio State's run game going to be? That is a big question. The offensive line just needs to be able to communicate, get to the next level, and Josh Fryer needs to play better. Josh Fryer had his worst game in a Buckeye uniform by far against Maryland, and they still were able to win by 20 against a much better team. Albeit this one's on the road, but it's at noon. This team is going to be awake because Ryan Day is going to be talking about the last time that they went there, because Ryan Day was on staff. He was interim coach earlier in the year. I'm taking Ohio State to not only win, but cover. Win pretty impressively by a score of 48-10. I think they blow out Purdue in this one. Oregon and Washington. This is 3:30 on CBS, and I don't know why it says Texas. My bad there. It is Oregon or Washington minus 2.5, I believe. So I forgot to change that, but that's whatever. This is a Macguffin game. And if you guys don't know what the Macguffin is, you can go to my TikTok or look up who CF Budge is on TikTok. He's got everything laid out. But basically, the Macguffin is somebody holds the Macguffin until they are beaten. This all started back in 1869 with Princeton, and there's been a nice little trail going down the list. Well, last year, Oregon was able to beat BYU, who beat Baylor earlier in the year, who, by the way, beat Ole Miss in the bowl game before. Ole Miss beat Texas A&M. It gets traced back to Alabama. So be it. I'll stop right there. Oregon won against BYU to get the Macguffin. And then all of a sudden, Washington surprises everybody, goes into Autzen Stadium and wins that game in walk-off fashion, in dramatic fashion, and steals away the Macguffin and has not lost since they lost the game against Arizona State last year. This is a Washington program that's absolutely on fire. You can look at what you have in Ryan Grubb and Kalen DeBoer working together on offense, but that defense, that secondary might be a little bit of a concern. And then you got Bo Nix, bodacious. This is his Heisman statement. This is the way that Bo Nix can get in the Heisman conversation. If you look at the biggest odds, Michael Penix Jr. is number one. This is a way to solidify that he is the favorite for the Heisman, but Bo Nix can really enter his name in that Heisman conversation with a big game in this one. You got Troy Franklin there, but you also got that duo that I've been talking about, Noah Whittington and Bucky Irving at running back. And they also have more with James as well. Like, they are loaded at running back. They have a really good offensive line. The most underrated transfer portal get in America is Johnny Cornelius, their tackle. He has been an absolute beast on this offensive line. I think Oregon might be the better team. The road test, though, makes me lean towards Washington, but I do not have a strong lean in this game, and I think the spread is just about right at about a pick 'em 2-3 points either way. I'm going to take Washington to win by 3, just like last year, 27-24, and we're going to move on that note, because this is going to be an incredible game. It is everything that you should want in a football game, and that's all we need to hear. That's all we need to know, because at the end of the day, that's what college football is going to be all about, just great games like this. All right, moving on. Tennessee hosting Texas A&M, 3:30 on CBS. Texas A&M, I think, might have a serious shot here if they weren't just coming off a home game where they lost to Alabama while Tennessee's coming off a bye. Now, does Josh Heupel do a very good job off the bye? We'll see how he does in this one off the bye, but the home stadium at their back, CBS is going to be in town. Even if I think Texas A&M is the more talented team, that secondary has still kind of been lit up through the air. I think this is Tennessee's moment to be able to shine offensively. I think Tennessee, with this national spotlight, even though it's a little bit overshadowed by that Macguffin game that I'm talking about, I'm going to take Tennessee to win this ball game because of home field advantage, not because of talent. And it'll drop Texas A&M to 4-3. But I'm going to say this right now. This is a must-win for Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M. They got to figure out a way to win this game, to avoid 4-3, to avoid that one game off of 500, because the fans will be chirping, the national media will be chirping. It is on you, Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M, to go into Neyland and get a big-time road win. We'll see if they can do it. I'm going to pick Tennessee in the home team right now, not playing this at all. That's all I got for you. Oh, boy. Saturday, 4 o'clock Eastern on Fox, we get a good old-fashioned Big Ten matchup. It is, as Pat Mahomes is picked off, maybe a little bit distracted by football. It is Wisconsin, Iowa. It is Boom, boom, boom. And Deacon Hill getting his second start here, looking pretty solid when they played Purdue last week. And they played that game at home. The last time that they played that game at home, though, Iowa was the number 2 team in America that ended up losing to the Purdue Boilermakers back in 2021. So what does Iowa bring to the table? Well, first off, Cooper DeJean is one of the most dynamic players in America. Second off, this Iowa defense is still legit. This Iowa offense has had really bad moments, but they've had a lot more glimpses of hope than they had last year. Now, missing Luke Lachey and Cade McNamara for the season, presumably, definitely McNamara for the season. Lachey, not as sure. Man, this Iowa team, they thought they had their weapons. They thought they had their offense at least decent enough to be able to score, and they lost it. And I think Wisconsin's going to struggle offensively for sure. But this game in the preseason, I said that Iowa would win. I'm going back on this. The offense does not look good enough to be able to go on the road to beat a Wisconsin team. I think that the passing ability that Wisconsin has found with Will Paulding being the number 1 target there for Wisconsin and emerging in the last couple of weeks, that is going to prove big time. And I think they get a little bit of get right back in the national spotlight a little bit after losing to Washington State in week 2. I think Wisconsin wins, but I do think Iowa covers. I think this is a low-scoring battle. I think you're looking at something like 20-13, 20-17 range. I think Iowa will be able to have a couple of good possessions. But overall, the home team gets the advantage yet again, just like the last couple of games. And I think this is a lot closer to a pick 'em than what Vegas gives. But a lot of people are in fade Iowa mode. I'm more so in I'll take Iowa plus 9.5, but I don't like them on the road as far as an official play. Kansas State on the road at Texas Tech. Another crazy environment here where we got a narrow spread, and albeit the last one wasn't narrow, but we have a situation where Kansas State is a road underdog by 1.5. That Vegas tells you that they're a slightly better team, but being on the road is definitely a challenge here. DJ Giddens needs to have a pretty big day for Kansas State. And this rushing attack for Kansas State has still been very, very solid this season so far. And Texas Tech has a pretty decent defense. They're nothing special for sure, but they are not nearly as bad as what they had under Cliff Kingsbury. Overall, I'm looking at this game and I'm back and forth. I want to favor home field for Texas Tech. And as much as I think Texas Tech is a really good team, I think this is shaping up to be a 7-5, 8-4 type of year where they get hot late in the year just like they did last year. But I think Kansas State, with a longer week, kind of with the extra day after losing to Oklahoma State, going to come out guns blazing, back-to-back road games makes it tough, but I think that they win this game on the road based on the fact that they are a really good team, really well coached, and they're going to be able to get back up for this. Now, if Kansas State loses this game, that means that they are 0-3 on the road. That is very concerning if you are a Kansas State Wildcat fan for what this team is, but it's also a very good experience building time for this young roster. I think this is a big elimination game in the Big 12. I think if you lose this game, that you have no shot, not even an outside shot of making the Big 12 championship based on the schedules going forward. An elimination game, I think backs against the wall. I'm taking the Wildcats over the Red Raiders. They've proven it more. 6.5, by the way, that's supposed to be, I think, 56.5 or 60.5. Wyoming on the road at Air Force, and I have a lot of typos in here. Didn't even realize it. Should have probably checked it, but whatever. We have CBS Sports Network. I was hoping it'd be on Fox, but this is okay with me too. We have Air Force, number 20 in my poll, hosting Wyoming. Now, Wyoming is coming off of a physical, emotional 24-19 victory over Fresno State that I called. And they are going on the road to Air Force, and Vegas likes Air Force by 10.5. That means they're probably about a touchdown favorite on a neutral site. This Air Force offense is fantastic. They're starting to really get things going. They're not missing Hazik Daniels as much as some pundits expected, but a big reason why they're 5-0 right now, and let's not sugarcoat this, is their schedule has been real soft. I mean, one of the softest schedules in all of college football FBS. Wyoming is by far their toughest test, and it's not even close. They have a fantastic defense, Wyoming does. They have a pretty balanced offense with a gamer at quarterback and a pretty solid run game. That being said, I still think Air Force is the better team. Air Force is my current, not preseason. Preseason was South Alabama, and that's not looking great, though. Still only 2 losses, right? No, I think they might have 3. No, they got 2. I think they have 2. So, but they're not going to New Year's 6. If I had to project ahead right now, I think Air Force goes undefeated. And part of that undefeated is winning this game. I do not know if they cover. If I had to guess, Wyoming would probably cover, but I have no idea. All I know is I think Air Force is a better team. I think that their rushing attack is going to weigh on Wyoming a little bit. Their attack is definitely a little bit different, but they were the most built out of any of the academies based on what they had done in the past to make this transition, and they have the best roster out of the academies by far. This is a fantastic Air Force team. If you have not watched them, watch them. They are fun. I mean, real fun. Air Force wins this game. Don't know if they cover. I'm taking Wyoming to cover for a pick, but Air Force moves on to 6-0. And is in the driver's seat in the Mountain West Mountain Division. USC and Notre Dame playing at 7:30 on NBC. Notre Dame losing 2 of their last 3 games in which they had very tough situations and tough sledding. They lost to Ohio State on the very last play of the game, essentially, outside of the pitch around play that Notre Dame was able to get because they added a second. They beat Duke late with a late Audric Estime touchdown, and then they lost to Louisville, in which it seemed like the wheels fell off in the second half. But I hate to break it to you, those wheels fell off, and you got to go ahead and put it back on and screw in those lug nuts and torque it. I mean, and you got to get that wheel back on because this is a super winnable game against a very vulnerable USC defense. But your margin for error is not big for this game, Notre Dame. You are going up against the returning Heisman Trophy winner and, to me, the favorite, but second in odds, Heisman Trophy candidate, Caleb Williams. And though I think their run game, Marshawn Lloyd, Austin Jones, they have a very good 1-2 punch, can have success. Their pass game, nobody should be really getting open for USC. So they should be, Notre Dame, if they have a pass rush here, they should be able to give Caleb Williams some problems, just like Arizona did. So the burden's going to be on nobody else but Sam Hartman and these young wide receivers to step up. I'm looking at Jaden Greathouse. I'm checking on the status of Rico Flores, who got injured in the Louisville game, but I'm also looking at bigger targets like Jaden Thomas. Where's Deion Colsey been? Why is the ball not getting in Chris Tyree's hands more? That's what I'm going to be wondering, because Chris Tyree is their most dynamic playmaker with the ball in his hands, and I expect a heavy dose also of Jeremiah Love with a little bit more burst and explosiveness really coming onto the scene as a true freshman, kind of like I expected him to. I'm taking Notre Dame to win. I'm taking them to cover 3 points. 3 points is a very narrow margin. I get that. I'm taking Notre Dame to win by at least 4. I think this could end up being a situation where USC gets exposed to the point, kind of like Utah in the Pac-12 championship, where Notre Dame outweighs them and pulls away. Notre Dame knows that if you get through this game, you got a bye week waiting for you the following week, and USC just has another one of these slugfest in a home game against Utah next week. This is not something that USC is looking forward to, this run, as far as the grueling and this is what college football is all about, right? But at the same time, the grueling physicality that you're going to get punched with this Notre Dame team, even if they're not as physical as they're hyped up to be, this is not a situation where USC is saying, this is a must-win for us. This is a situation where Notre Dame is saying, this is a must-win for us. I'm taking Notre Dame to win by at least 4 points. I honestly could see them pulling away. Like I said, I'm going to take Notre Dame to win by 17. Let's go bold here. I'm going to take Notre Dame to end up running away with this by a score of 41-24. That's what I'm going to go with. and we'll see if I end up being proven right in the end. Miami, redemption time on the road at North Carolina, losing their first conference game in the absolute worst fashion that you can lose a football game, in which it was a coaching collapse. One of two things can happen here. Either you lose the locker room or Miami shakes it off and they play up to their potential, knowing that they can make a big statement. I happen to think that Mario Cristobal is a culture guy. Now, at Miami, it's a little bit harder to be a culture guy than Oregon, but they've made mistakes like this in the past. And they had situations at Oregon, but they had always had pretty impeccable culture over at Oregon. And I think their team is going to be back up and ready for this game. I'm going to go with the home field, and I'm going to go with the quarterback, Drake May, here. But I would not be the least bit surprised if Miami throws all over North Carolina. And this is going to be a high-scoring game, in my opinion. I think that North Carolina ends up winning this. So a slight cover by Miami, 38-35. I think this is tremendously fun. I think this is one that you guys need to tune into in the night slate. You need to have multiple screens all day long. I'm just telling you, especially at night. Because we also have Missouri and Kentucky for – I want to say for Missouri, this is an elimination game, but for Kentucky, based on the fact that they're de facto 2 games removed from Georgia, you could get into like a 3-way tie situation here. I'm pretty sure this is an elimination game for just Missouri. I'm pretty sure Kentucky is out of this race. They still have to play Alabama and Missouri. They lost a tough one last week to LSU. Doing this back-to-back thing after playing LSU in a little bit of a race to 40, or basically almost a race to 50, but a race to 40 type of situation, an absolute barn burner. You had that type of situation, and then Kentucky getting blown out. Kentucky has more to prove here. Kentucky has more of a bounce-back spot, while Missouri has more of a letdown spot. And though I think that Missouri is the better team, hence their ranking and Kentucky's lack of one, though I think Kentucky is still a pretty solid team, and I think Kentucky's good enough. They win this game on the road with those factors. They have something to prove. Missouri's in a letdown spot. Kentucky's going to be able to run the ball. Missouri, the ability to throw the ball, though Georgia kind of exposed Kentucky's secondary a little bit. I still don't think it's going to be dominant enough for the Missouri Tigers to win. I kind of like the over in this game, but I'm going to take Kentucky to win. Cover 2.5. Sure, that's a small enough number. I think Kentucky gets it done in Lexington. UCLA on the road at Oregon State. The great defense that UCLA has can potentially travel. The biggest key to this game is going to be, can Dante Moore really take advantage of the suspect secondary that Oregon State has? And that's my big question. And the answer is I just don't know. I think they're going to be able to hit a couple of big plays, but I don't know if they can do it consistently throughout the game. And I also think Oregon State's a better offense than what UCLA has faced. Home field advantage gives it to Oregon State. I'm going to take UCLA to slightly cover, taking Oregon State by 3 points. I'm going to take them to win 34-31. But, man, like, this is another one. That's a fun game. It's a pick 'em. I'm pretty sure UCLA was actually favored early in the week. I could be wrong on that. Correct me if I'm wrong. But Oregon State, public's on them. I could see UCLA going into Corvallis and winning this game. I don't love that pick, though, because I'm not sure how good UCLA is, because the one time we did see them against a legitimate team, they could hardly move the ball and hardly score. So I'm taking Oregon State to win this ball game. All right, walk that line. We got Tulane minus 4.5. That's tomorrow at Memphis. It's not a super far travel for them. Memphis, the Liberty Bowl, not the toughest environment in the world. And Tulane definitely should have a lot of success on offense there. Iowa State plus 5.5. They're on the road at Cincinnati. They're off of a little bit of an emotional victory against TCU, but I think it's a rhythm type of victory. They found their pass game against TCU. They looked really good. Brack looks like a solid player filling in there as Hunter Deckers had his situation in the preseason. And I think that Iowa State could potentially take advantage of a little bit of a vulnerable secondary for Cincinnati. And I certainly don't think Cincinnati is going to be able to score a whole lot. I think Iowa State, if they lose this game, it's a low-scoring, close one. I'm taking Iowa State plus 5.5. I already talked about this. I think Ohio State makes a big-time statement, and they win big on the road at Purdue. A lot of people saying, hey, this might be an upset spot right before Penn State on the road at Purdue. We remember the last few times Ohio State's been to Purdue, it either has not been easy or they've lost. They've lost, I believe, 4 of 7 when it comes to road games at Purdue. But I think they 50-50 out here, and I think they blow out Purdue 48-10, like I said. And then James Madison -5.5. They're playing against a team in Georgia Southern that has not faced a defense in the ever since the Wisconsin game that is as built to go up against them as James Madison. And in fact, James Madison might be able to handcuff that passing game a little bit more than Wisconsin did, and Wisconsin was able to run away with that game. James Madison, super tough defense, pretty efficient offense. I like them to cover 5.5. Maryland -13.5. They're at home against Illinois. Again, I think they found some confidence going on the road to Ohio State, being tied and in the lead in the second half at 17-10, being tied at halftime. Being in that game, I think they found a whole lot of confidence. Their wide receivers are really good. Caden Prather, Jay-Sean Jones. These guys are fantastic players. Corey Dyches, also a mismatch. And the Illinois secondary has still not looked up to standard. I'm taking Maryland to cover 13.5. Kansas is a wagon right now. The only time they let me down is when they didn't cover against Texas. But as a favorite, they've been really good. They've been blowing out some teams. They basically controlled the Illinois game. They blew out UCF last week, and I think they continue on that train. They go on the road to Oklahoma State in a little bit of a hangover spot for Oklahoma State after a big win at home against Kansas State last week. Kansas is the Kansas school that ends up going on the road and beating the Pokes of Oklahoma State. Georgia State -1 in an absolute shootout last week Marshall had with North Carolina State. They fell just short in an emotional game, and now they're going to have to play another electric offense. I also definitely think that this Georgia State defense is playing good enough that they are going to be able to stop this Marshall attack just enough to be able to win this game. I'm taking Georgia State -1. Notre Dame -2.5. You heard my logic earlier with this. I think Notre Dame could potentially pull away with this one. I think USC is going to get burnt out pretty soon on what they are doing. And maybe they're not going to burn out that quickly and that insanely. But being on the road at Notre Dame out east in the middle of a stretch of 9 straight Power 5 games, this is insane. And I think this is the first time that America gets to see USC's endurance, competitive stamina be a little bit questioned here. Miami and North Carolina, I'm taking over the 56.5. It said 57 in the slides. I bet it at 56.5 here. So take it right now at 56.5. Take it at 57. I think a lot of points, 70 plus, are going to be scored in this game. It is going to be a quarterback duel between Tyler Van Dyke and Drake May. I definitely don't think North Carolina's defense is as improved as a lot of people seem to think. But I also think that Drake May is going to be able to absolutely score on this Miami defense. Duke, -3. I don't know. It makes no sense. It kind of scares me in a way, but North Carolina State just had that shootout with Marshall, and it's at Duke. Wallace Wade Stadium is insane. I don't know if Vegas has adjusted. I think that defense, Peyton Wilson, is going to be able to keep track of Riley Leonard pretty well, but that Duke defense is going to just stifle that NC State offense unless MJ Morris has some surprises up his sleeve. How about Colorado State +7.5? They're at home against Boise State. I think this is a tight game, down to the wire type of thing. That means one score. That means a one-score football game for Colorado State and Boise State. So take Colorado State +7.5. 43.5 is the line that I'm getting for Georgia over/under points. I'm taking them at 45 or more or less. I think Georgia just puts up points against Vanderbilt. I wouldn't be surprised if they drop a 60 burger, but last time I did that, Georgia kind of cost me. We had a 5-7 week last week. We have too many losing weeks. Hopefully we can get it back, and hopefully we can do better in the future. But regardless, thank you guys for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Make sure you guys tune into all my TikTok videos. And with that being said, we are going to sign off on that note. Like I said, thank you guys for tuning in. Like and subscribe. We'll see you guys next time. Have a great holiday.